And so Sheryl's education was focused on disability studies. She considers herself a lifelong learner on a never-ending journey for well-being and insight. I'm with you there. And recovery is part of a daily practice and passion. And the title of her talk today is Recovery Colleges, Co-Producing Transformation in Mental Health Services. And her talk is about 40 minutes, she says, so we're hoping to have time for dialogue and questions at the end. And as we go through, please feel free to post your questions, comments, feedback in the chat box, and I will monitor that as we go, and we can have some dialogue at the end. So I will turn it over to you, Sheryl, to get us started.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sandra. Can everybody see my presentation?
We do, but it's small. I think it's not on presentation mode for some reason.
Yeah, I'm just going to fix that. And I'm not sure why, but presentation mode doesn't seem to want to work. You know, it's so funny. It worked a couple of seconds ago when we were testing.
Of course it did.
I wonder what has happened.
Oh, and
let me.
while you're doing that, Louise has joined us from Scotland, so love it.
Oh, wonderful.
There, that looks better. And then now you should be able to see the presentation mode in the bottom right. Do you see that?
There we go. I think
Perfect.
This is it. Wonderful. There we go. Okay, well, thank you all so much. I'm just so happy to be with you today and really excited to talk about recovery colleges, specifically our recovery college here at the Canadian Mental Health Association, Manitoba and Winnipeg, which is called the Well-being Learning Centre. And what you're looking at right now is just a shot of Winnipeg. And it is a picture of us in the summer when we are particularly a beautiful city. And that is a picture of the Human Rights Museum behind a bridge that we call the Real Esplanade. And of course, the Human Rights Museum is a national museum dedicated to human rights and justice and truth and reconciliation. And so we're very proud in Winnipeg to have that amongst our community. To give you an idea of my session overview today, I'm going to describe the Recovery College model to you. I'm going to introduce you to our Wellbeing Learning Centre, and then I'm going to report how co-production has been used in the Learning Centre to create educational opportunities that empower people in their journey. And so, Sandra, I just need to check and make sure that I have not pulled up, I'm just going to actually restart if that's okay.
No problem.
And just ensure that I have this should be, my apologies there. I just wanted to ensure that I had my most current version of this presentation because I don't want to miss anything. All right, so to begin with, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Recovery College. And so a few years ago, back in 2009, Recovery College was something that emerged in London and spread very quickly through the United Kingdom. It was an educational perspective on recovery for folks with mental health issues. And it offered educational courses and workshops focused on mental health and recovery. A real prime goal is to overcome stigma and discrimination associated with mental illness. Their model actually spread very, very quickly. And so since 2009, in those short 11 years, there are recovery colleges around the world now. There are recovery colleges in the United Kingdom, Ireland, Australia, North America, Uganda, and now, of course, in Canada. And particularly, this Canadian Mental Health Association has been a strong leader around recovery colleges. And we work with our partners, of course, with other recovery colleges across Canada. We were very much drawn to Recovery College because the research said that these colleges are excellent interventions that really improve well-being and also the quality of life of the individuals who experience Recovery College. Initially, when we were looking for some new programming ideas, we did an international scan of best practices, current and new innovative ideas, and we landed on the Recovery College model. And we were particularly drawn to Recovery College because co-production is actually embedded in their approach. And so for the Recovery College model, co-production is a key value. What it looks like for recovery colleges is meaningful involvement of the people with lived experience regarding mental health issues and addiction, and that they have a voice in all aspects of the college. The courses are co-designed between people with lived experience, who are referred to as students, and the professionals who are involved in mental health services throughout the community, throughout the mental health system, and within the Recovery College. Students are involved in every aspect of Recovery College, right from management and governance all the way to the delivery of courses. And students often grow in their roles in the Recovery College and become facilitators and leaders in the Recovery College. So it's a very evolutionary experience for a lot of students. It's really a particularly great opportunity to build a sense of meaningfulness and look at the future roles that a person could experience. So this just really added up for us at CMHA Manitoba and Winnipeg as a great model to follow. In the past, we had workshops that we offered to individuals, but what we realized is that we really needed an umbrella, a structure like Recovery College that really brought our educational programming together and really created an impact on the individuals that we serve. And so what you're looking at right now on the screen is a couple of shots of our CMHA. So you have a picture there of our front door. Upper in the corner is what we call our Wellbeing Cafe. It's a place where our students can gather before a course, after a course. All of our CMHA participants are welcome to sit down and have a chat. They can get some peer support on an informal basis in that space, grab a coffee. They're also able to charge their phones and just be able to feel, a place to sit down and feel comfortable in their journey. And then near the bottom is a shot of one of our classrooms, and we have two classrooms where we provide our courses. Just to give you some insight into sort of how things look for us in our learning center, I want to start by mentioning that we made an active choice not to call ourselves a recovery college. It just didn't suit our community. And so in terms of co-production, when we started to talk about the Learning Center and we started to share with members of our community and particularly participants of our agency, one response that we got back was that Recovery College just didn't fit. It just didn't resonate with folks. And so we did a lot of brainstorming and we landed on the idea of a learning center. And right now, many CMHAs are using the term Recovery College. Others are using the term learning center. Some are using the term learning hub. And so one thing that we are just loving is how each community is deciding what it works for them and what they want to be referred to as. In the learning center or in a recovery college, we refer to the space as a campus. Where the learning takes place is referred to as a classroom. And of course, the people who attend courses and who participate in the learning center are referred to as students. It's a way to move away from terms like client or patient. We use participant in the CMHA Federation often, but we really love student and how that is actually a completely different identity for a lot of the individuals that receive service in mental health agencies. So again, here's another shot of our cafe. And we use the term something for everyone as a bit of a catchphrase in our learning center. What we think of ourselves as is a unique learning environment where students learn self-management skills, gain self-awareness, and they develop and they discover strategies towards recovery. We think of lived experience as expert knowledge. And when we talk about lived experience in the Learning Center, we are in part talking about people with lived experience around mental illness and addiction, but we're also talking about family members and partners and friends. We're also talking about advocates and people who are allies in mental health across our country and across the world. And we're also talking about unique, specific lived experiences that are just relevant to well-being and mental health. So a person who maybe identifies with loneliness and isolation is also a person with lived experience, not just a person with a diagnosis. Adult learning principles guide us in our focus. We create our courses around adult learning principles. Our discussion activities are embedded in adult learning principles, and our students are always encouraged to share their knowledge and their experiences and to adopt that perspective that they are actually an expert on mental health. I want to talk for a second just about, in terms of co-production, this particular space that we call our Wellbeing Cafe used to look like a waiting room. It had 2 rows of, kind of utilitarian black chairs. They kind of faced each other. And it was quite a dull kind of environment because there was a lot of like neutral tones. And what we knew when we started the learning centers, we wanted more of a campus feel. And we invited participants to join us when we met with a designer and some interior decorating specialists. And we sat down and we, as a group, talked about what we would like the space to feel like and what we would like it to look like. That co-production process sort of evolved where we collected some pictures of spaces, some fabric samples, some color paint samples, threw them on the wall, and then just invited all of our community and everybody who entered our building to grab a Post-it note and kind of put in a vote and tell us what they liked, what they didn't like. The feedback we got was really fascinating, where people talked about, what kind of furniture they wanted, what kind of colors they wanted, who they wanted, to be welcoming them into that space. And throughout that entire process, with the designers and in discussion, we co-produced that space until it has become what it currently is, which is just a really friendly environment where people feel just really comfortable. There's a lot of laughter. There's a lot of chit-chatting in our space. We have these lovely vaulted ceilings. And so it just feels like a little bit out of the box in terms of like what a mental health clinic might look like, or a mental health agency might look like. We're just wanted to really move away from anything clinical. And in terms of welcoming people, we used to have a person who was a receptionist up at the front. And another thing that we did with our students is we co-produced what welcoming would look like for this space. And so what we ended up doing is designing a staff position with a group of students, and they kind of talked about what they thought the skills needed for a person who would be employed, what kind of things that in terms of tasks that person would do. And they actually spent a month practicing or filling in roles and kind of learning on the ground there what it was like to welcome people and manage that space and provide peer support, so that they were able to create actually a job description that led to us hiring what we call a peer connector. And so we're just really proud of our Learning Center campus and just trying to create a very welcoming and safe environment. This slide here is just a little bit of a taste of some of the courses that we have in our Learning Center. We currently have 45 courses that we have co-produced with our students and with our community. And they range from courses that are specific to diagnosis, like insights into anxiety, to courses for older adults, younger adults. You can see a couple examples there: promoting positivity and optimism, making peace with anger, Just we are just so proud of our curriculum, and that we can say that our courses are fully co-produced with our students. So I want to share this quote with the group. It comes from Brene Brown, and she says, "What we are ethically called to do is create a safe space in our schools and our classrooms where all students can walk in and for that day or hour, take off the crushing weight of their armor, hang it on a rack, and open their heart to being truly seen." This quote just embodies for us what our students have told us that they want our environment to feel like, and what they want the Learning Center to be like for them. We want it to be a place where people feel comfortable and safe and authentic and able to shed any kind of stigma and share their stories and their experiences, both of pain and of joy, and that they can feel validated for their authenticity. So in our perspective, learning environment should be bright, they should be vibrant, and they should be a place where people feel comfortable and welcome. And that's what we're aspiring to. So to switch gears now and talk a little bit about co-production in the Learning Center, we take from a philosophy that was written by folks at the Recovery College leadership. And so this comes from a paper called Co-Production, Sharing Our Experiences, Reflecting on Our Learning. And basically, the philosophy of co-production through the lens of Recovery College is that it's a process for creating change and innovation. It recognizes gifts and assets of the people involved. The responsibility is shared equally between the students and the staff of the Learning Center or the Recovery College. Those involved are equal, and whether or not they are professional or a person of lived experience, it does not matter, because their knowledge and their perspective is considered valuable and needed. There are no bad ideas, and that's a really important point when we do co-production, is that we put down everything that is sort of brainstormed in our sessions. This picture on the slide here is a great example of what a co-production session looks like. The walls are usually covered with giant Post-it notes, and there's active discussion happening, and people really paying attention to one another, and generating ideas and excitement about whatever course or production we're developing. Brainstorming is our major action of co-production, and what we do often see in co-production is a lot of creativity, a lot of enthusiasm, and a lot of excitement. And so we found this approach just to be really vitalizing. And of course, I'm going to talk about how it's been transformative for us, but I just can't speak enough to say how just revitalizing and alive the co-production process has made our Learning Center and our CMHA environment. So when we co-produce, we think a lot about the individuals that attend our courses. We think from the perspective of our students. We think of co-production as bringing together both that expertise of lived knowledge and of lived experience and professional knowledge. And so we will call upon social workers and occupational therapists and experts related to mental health, and anybody with professional knowledge and insight about whatever topic we're focused on. And we will work together as a group, right from that initial planning through the decision making process and through the creation and the operation and curriculum of the Learning Center. When we think about the Learning Center and what our students were asking for, it really fell in alignment with co-production. It's that revolutionary idea of both the people who consume the service and the people who provide the service coming together on the same side of a table and working together. We think a lot about how we're better together, and we think a lot about how this is not our Learning Center in terms of the people who are employed at CMHA, but it's actually the Learning Center, and it's the CMHA of the people who come and consume our programs and services and our education offerings. So as I said, brainstorming and discussion are the major actions, and we're just involving people through every step. And we just always are going back to that community and asking them what they think and what they want. And we actually don't have to do a lot of asking at this point, 3 years in. What we find is that people will just give us a call, will stop us in the hall, or send us an email and tell us what they're thinking and what they're wanting from the Learning Center. So co-production has really become embedded in our day-to-day practice. So our approach in terms of co-production really starts with an advisory committee. What we've done is gather 12 students. They meet every month, and we discuss pretty much everything from pillar to post related to Recovery College Learning Center business. When we're hiring, we bring them in for interviews. We bring them in to assist with interviewing and decision making around hiring. Any kind of changes, any kind of new ideas, we bring to our advisory committee. And then we also loop them into our co-production process, and they give the final say on any course before it kind of goes live into the Learning Center and is offered. Students also are the place that we start with any course topics or any new ideas. And so our students will tell us in a course through our evaluation, but also through discussion, what kind of other courses they might be interested in our Learning Center. And we also have a suggestion form that people can kind of fill out anytime that they have an idea, write down their thoughts, and bring that forward. I've written here that co-production sessions happen regularly for us on a monthly basis, but since the COVID-19 has started, what I'm seeing is actually co-production seems to happen on a daily basis, because we're doing it in quite a few different ways. We used to always do this gathering, bringing a group together, but now we're online. Sometimes we're doing it by mail with folks who don't actually have technology and can't join us on Zoom. Sometimes we're doing it over the phone. And so when I look around, I see co-production actually happening on a daily basis here at CMHA. When we do a co-production, we usually have one person who takes the role of being the facilitator. They guide that discussion and keep us on track. And we also have a scribe, and that person is just writing down all of the ideas that are being brought forward and anything that has been decided upon, so that we have a record for that. And so we've used co-production not only to develop courses, not only to develop our Wellbeing Cafe, not only to develop, positions and jobs, but we've also done it to, we've used co-production to provide info sessions and talk about, when we go out and promote different CMHA services, what would the audience be looking to know? And so we'll ask people who have experienced our services to co-produce presentations with us. We've also had a few opportunities to come together with both teachers and students during COVID-19 and talk about how to make those environments, those educational environments, feel safe and comfortable while people are experiencing COVID-19. So we are just always looking for every opportunity to use the co-production approach, and we're finding that it's just infinite. I mean, any project that we tackle, we recently submitted some funding proposals, and we also just designed the ideas that were being proposed in a co-produced style with individuals and stakeholders of our CMHA. So our approach is wide and very enthusiastic, and we think about how we build a co-production team as something that has been a bit of a journey for us and a learning experience. So initially, what we would do when we were doing co-production is we would just have a situation where different individuals we would just kind of throw out an open invite, and different individuals would show up for a co-production session, and we'd have like 20 people in a room, and we had all this enthusiasm, and it would be going fantastically well, except it was a little bit overwhelming to kind of keep, straight all of the ideas, and to kind of manage the room, and to get sort of an opportunity for everybody to share their insights. So what we recognized is the right number of people in a co-production session is more like 6 to 8 people and less than 10. So rather than doing just one giant co-production session, we're actually doing several co-production sessions simultaneously, working on the same sort of brainstorming and design work together with individuals, and bringing all of that material and all of that idea generating together. We have noticed that it's important to have a balance of people with lived experience on the subject, having people who are even just interested in the subject, and people with expert knowledge on the subject involved in co-production. So early on, that balance wasn't always right. We might have too many professionals in the room, and then we were getting a skewed sort of perspective. And then at times, if we have too many folks with lived experience, the piece that we're missing is kind of, where is that evidence-based research? Where are those resources that we're going to turn to for the information? And where's that sort of particularly knowledge piece around best practices and strategies that are being proven in research. One thing that we do is we start a co-production team by providing everybody with some information about what to expect in that co-production session. So what you'll see on this particular slide is just a picture of what our sort of quick handout that we provide to people is in terms of what co-production and what to expect. So we want people to come into our co-production sessions really aware of what to expect, what's going to happen, and reduce any kind of sense of tension or wondering how this is going to work out. And so we really want to demystify co-production. It's a term that isn't really well known here in Manitoba, to be quite honest. And so we see ourselves as kind of in the role of sharing co-production and sort of spreading this approach throughout our community. And one thing that we start every co-production session with is an emphasis on power dynamics and partnerships, and trying to make sure everyone in the room recognizes that we are equal. We all are coming to this together, that collaboration is an action, not just a description, and that we all have to work together in that space and show mutual respect to one another, and give each other's ideas and perspectives value. And so when we think about our co-production methodology, what we recognized when we were out there was that there was no instruction manual. We looked really hard. We were hoping that there would be an instruction manual in terms of what co-production looked like, how to do it. Here are the easy 10 steps, and we didn't find that. And so we did a lot of trial and error. And then what we decided that was really important was that we would create our own methodology. And so we've created a bit of a paper that we use as a guiding sort of document in terms of what our co-production methodology is. And we also think, though, about co-production is very flexible and very organic. And so whatever happens in the moment and whatever happens in that space that is guided by that particular group is what we consider to be really authentic and really true to co-production. One thing that is really important is that we create feedback loops. And so we do have our sessions, and then what happens is that those ideas are brought back by our staff, put into a PowerPoint, created into a course or a project, and then we go back to that group and show them our first draft, get their feedback, go back, get more feedback. When we offer a course, we're always opening it up for feedback, and we're asking our students to tell us what their impressions are and letting them know that there's always opportunity for a course or a project to change and to grow and to evolve. And so something that we've seen is a real comfort in our classroom for our students to say, I liked the course, but here's what I was hoping for, or here's what I think you missed. We recently had a great example of that where we were offering a course on relationships and sort of what is the difference between a healthy relationship and an unhealthy relationship. And our students provided us with the feedback that we are really effective at providing information about unhealthy relationships, but that perspective of healthy relationships just wasn't as clear in the course as it could have been. We kind of had an imbalance between the two. We took the course back to the computer, and we looked at our co-production material, and we looked at our research, and we looked at what we knew about relationships, and we recalibrated that balance, and then went back to that particular group and said, do we have it? And tell us more about what we need to put in here. Finding that to just be a really fascinating experience where what we see is like courses growing and changing and actually being incredibly unique from experience to experience. So one thing that we know is sort of the secret sauce in our perspective regarding co-production is that when we're creating those sessions of co-production, we really need to create an inclusive experience, and we really need to think about how that space, that session feels for the individuals who are involved, and that there's active listening happening, that people are being heard, that their voice is being acknowledged, that what they are sharing is being understood. So active listening being a really important part of the co-production process. That we encourage vulnerability, and not just not just with the individuals with lived experience who might be in the room, but really for any CMHA staff who come in the room and any of the professionals. And so sometimes we'll see a mental health professional talk maybe about something that happens in their practice that is related to the topic, or where they've learned best practices and how they've used those best practices. But we also might see them getting really connected to their own particular practice and their own lived experience, and maybe talk about times when they felt vulnerable in relation to the topic, or even the impact that they've seen in their work and how their work has affected them. So creating that opportunity for people to be vulnerable is really when we get to the best, we really get to the best brainstorming, and we get the most authentic and truest and most vibrant courses. We want to appreciate every perspective. So we really do push the idea that there's no wrong way. There's no wrong idea. There's no wrong answer. Everything goes up on the post-it notes. Everything is included with the scribe, and everything is open for discussion. And what we see is a lot of collaboration in the room, where people are saying, yes, I hear what that person is saying. I agree. And here's one more idea, that kind of thing. And then we just kind of have some practices in our sessions that we found have been really helpful for us. And so beyond the active listening and the scribing and the valuing in terms of every contribution, we start off with a check-in, and we end off with a check-out. And so we start off by asking people how they're feeling about this topic, sort of why they feel maybe a course is important on this topic, and what their vision is of that. And then when we check out, we ask people how the session was for them, and how they, what the experience meant to them. And that's where we really get a sense of how we can improve our co-production approach and how we can strengthen our sessions. And we also get a sense of really what is sort of that magic and that transformation that's happening. And so in the checkouts, that's where we hear, how people have found this to be a completely different experience than they've ever had. That what we're providing them is not with a focus group experience or a check-in experience, or we're not just presenting them our ideas and asking them to just sign off on them, but they actually feel like they are involved in production and creation design, and that they're offered opportunities at every stage of co-production to be involved. So the transformative impact is something that there almost are no words to kind of describe. Our students have told us that they feel respected, that they find the experience to be encouraging and inspiring, that they find both co-production and our courses to be a place where they increase their self-esteem, and that our environment has become a place that is where they can identify their self-stigma and they can take it off, but also increase of social networks. But what we really find is transformative is how co-production actually affects both us as professionals and our students and our community members, and that we stop thinking of it as us and them, but it becomes we, and we become a group. And as professionals, we just can't imagine at this point ever sitting at our desk and designing something without actually working with the people who would consume whatever that course is, or that project, or that mental health initiative. And so the transformation that we've seen in ourselves is just that we've been able to see a different way of doing our day-to-day work, and we collaborate with other CMHAs across the country to help them build up their own recovery colleges. 3 years ago, there was one. Now there are 15, and there are another half a dozen to a dozen that are in development. We've seen our federation come together, and we work together as a CMHA family now, helping and supporting each other in our own regions, and also encouraging creation that is unique to each of our communities and each of our regions. We've been able to become involved in things like the international community of practice for recovery colleges. We're involved. We've helped lead recovery college community of practice in Canada amongst the CMHA Federation. We're also involved in a lot of different evaluation and research projects and evaluation development. And we gather a lot of quantitative data, but also a lot of qualitative data. We hear the most amazing feedback from our students, and see how they're experiencing changes in their life. We have some students who are now pursuing careers in universities as social workers, as marriage and family therapists, as engineers. And then we have other students who have gone on to work for our regional health authority as peer supporters, and even have some of our participants have become staff members and colleagues of ours here at CMHA. So, I don't want to rattle on too much, but the transformative impact for us has been absolutely phenomenal. We see this as a journey, and that we're not even halfway through this journey. I want to share this particular quote with you, though, because I think it really encapsulates what co-production means from our experience and our learning of it. And so, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that has ever has. And that's from Margaret Mead. And we've just been drawn to that particular quote because it just really embodies our experience. And so here's just a picture of our team. And I guess I just want to open it up now to discussion, or maybe turn it back over to you, Sandra.
We're starting to get a bunch of questions come through the chat, so I'll try to go through them in order. Thank you, first of all, very much. Your passion is there. I feel the excitement.
Oh,
it's really great. I know, Tracy, you had a couple of specific questions. One was, and other people may have it as well, you talked about a paper about co-production and methodology. So if you could share that with us, that would be great.
We absolutely can. We call it our co-production methodology, and it's sort of our step-by-step approach to co-production. We've also kind of created a map of like all the steps of co-production that we follow. And we also think of that particular methodology as always growing and always developing. And so I would happily send that to you, Sandra, and happy to share that.
Okay, and we'll share it with the group that's registered. I think we can do that. Tracy, I know you had a couple of other questions, so I'll let you start, and then we'll go through the ones that have come in order.
Okay, sure. Hi.
Hi, Tracy.
Um, Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm part of a research project that's considering recovery colleges in BC. Um, and so a question, oh yeah, so for your professionals, how are they recruited and how are they paid?
So in co-production, we don't actually pay anyone. We don't offer honorariums, anything like that. We think of it as and we don't have any difficulty recruiting professionals or students. We invite them and ask them if they would be interested. And what we find is that people actually feel really curious, very intrigued by the idea of co-production. And, they come when we invite them, when they're available, based on their schedules and based on their interest in a topic. So we recently did a co-production around grieving and loss. We invited folks from Palliative Manitoba and individuals who are, kind of professionals in the field of grief support. And we provide food. That is one thing that we do when we do in-person co-production, is we kind of provide a little smorgasbord of goods and desserts. But we just try and create just a really warm environment where people feel welcome and where they just feel sort of an intrinsic sense of contribution. When our students become co-facilitators, we provide honorariums, and whenever they participate in anything like a focus group or assist with any kind of, take on any kind of role, we definitely look at remuneration. But we've made a conscious decision that co-production will be sort of just a collaborative experience of people who want to come together and bring their ideas together for something greater.
So Cheryl, the people involved in the design of the courses are not paid, but if there's a student facilitating, there would be an honorarium. Is that right?
Yes,
but
absolutely.
not professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. So the co-facilitator is usually a student, and the lead facilitator is usually one of our staff members. So we have facilitators on our team, and our co-facilitators, again, they don't I don't feel that they do it for the perspective of being financially reimbursed. It's something that we offer and we insist on. But our students tell us that it's really about that piece in terms of their recovery, where when you're starting to feel stronger in your own mental health and your own journey, that you want to give back and you want to also take on a leadership role. And so we create an opportunity for them to become co-facilitators, participate in peer support in different ways, and share their knowledge and be able to also gain work experience and references and professional insight. But and we do offer them an honorarium and pay.
And can you tell us how much you pay, what the honorarium
Yeah.
is? I totally get that there's other things they get from it, for sure.
No, absolutely. And so something that's a little bit unique about Manitoba right now and about our learning center is that we don't have a funder. We kind of run on a shoestring. I have a staff of 3 full-time people, 1 casual staff that works, 1 day or 2 days a week. And when we created the Learning Center here at CMHA, we knew that there was no mental health dollars for a new program. So we just kind of reallocate funds and live off of donations and surplus funds. And so for our co-facilitators, what we do is we pay them minimum wage for every hour that they facilitate, every hour that they prepare and are involved in working in our learning center. And so we would definitely love that to be more, but that's kind of what we can afford at this point.
I'm going to try to go through. There's a lot of questions here. I'm getting it back up here. So Lynn, do you want to ask your questions about student involvement?
Yes, I'm going to go back and cheat and say, what did I actually write earlier? Yes. So just my sense is that in this case, the students are involved on an ongoing basis. It's not just that they're participating in one course and so also get involved in co-production, but they are part of the community, and it's an ongoing, years of interaction probably.
Yeah, it varies. Our statistics show that most people take a minimum of 2 courses. We rarely have somebody who just takes 1 course. And that what we find is that on average, people take, 5 or 6 courses. And that community piece, was actually one of the most astounding things. I mean, when we started this, we thought that we were providing an educational program. We hoped that people would connect through the courses, but the actual community piece is actually so significant, where very quickly they feel a sense of belonging, and they feel like they're around peers who understand them. They're developing friendships, and they want to be a part of the learning center. We often catch people and love it when they talk about like a student will say, our learning center or something, when they're talking to somebody else about it. They'll say, you should join in with our learning center, or you should attend this course. Our learning center is fantastic for this. So it's the community is really led by the students. Yeah, it is kind of an ongoing thing. I would say that people usually spend about a year in the learning center, and then they actually move on to bigger and better things in their own community.
Thank you. Jillian, you had a couple of questions actually. And Sheryl, do you want to stop sharing your screen and then we can see?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, so sorry.
No problem. So Jillian, do you want to ask your question about transformation?
Yeah, Sheryl, thanks so much. Fantastic presentation. Can you go a little bit further with regard to the transformation? You talked about the transformation for students, but I'm also wondering about transformative experience for providers and the broader system, if you could speak to that at all.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, this is a fairly new concept to us. And I think about the old days. We used to, part of my work has always been to create training programs, to create presentations, to facilitate things. And the old way was I would go to my desk and just start thinking about what is needed and what do I think people want. I think that transformation is recognizing that the answers aren't actually inside of you, that the answers are a collaborative experience. And that collaboration is something, it's not just a description, it's an action that happens when you ask people what they want. In terms of, I just feel that I can see how it's transforming mental health services in Manitoba. It's definitely transformed CMHA, where, we never would have put in a funding agreement in the past, where, we consulted students. We would have just, that would have been our sort of idea, and we would have saw ourselves as the experts. But it's this transformation of recognizing that the people who consume services or attend a learning center, or the students, are actually the experts, and they know what they want. And the thing that you're developing or co-producing is going to be most impressive and effective if they've actually had a say in what that looks like. And so, how I see this is evolving is just, I think about our crisis state, or what we call our crisis response center here in Manitoba. In the last year, they've brought in the idea of peer support. So that to me is also co-production, because when people arrive at that crisis center, it's not that they are necessarily going to be handed off now to a psychiatrist or a clinician, but they might be sitting down with a person who also has lived experience and thinking about strategies and crisis response and a mental health treatment plan with somebody who actually has lived experience with them. And so, although we would call that peer support in that environment, I also think of it as how we are transitioning and transforming mental health services through co-production, and seeing how different approaches are being taken. I'm not sure if I answered your question, Jillian.
Thanks. I think that's a great start. I really appreciate that, Sheryl. Thank you.
Simon had a question about naming, why you chose not to call your program a recovery college.
So what our community told us is that recovery college, and college particularly, was what they had umbrage with. It just felt like a lot of pressure. And as I mentioned, like, we're really focused on this idea of lifelong learning. And so college kind of evoked to them this idea that what might happen is that they have to end at some point, or there might be homework, or there might be exams. And so just that sort of pressure came out of, for our community, was evoked by the term recovery college. Learning center just felt much more, just more relaxing and welcoming to them. It was a really fascinating conversation. It causes us a little bit of confusion because we're always having this conversation about recovery colleges, but then we have to add, you know, / learning center to everything. But yeah, the language, I think language just sometimes is something that's a little bit more sensitive to people with lived experience than we recognize as professionals. And so that's something that I've learned through co-production and hearing from folks, is that, you know, even something like the term college, it just didn't sit with them. It's not that they wouldn't have, you know, attended, but they just like this idea of learning center a lot more.
Simon, does that answer your question? If you want to unmute, or maybe he can't.
That's fine. That's great. Thank you. I wondered also if it had something to do with the term recovery, but it's more about the college.
Well, the term recovery is really interesting because one thing I've been working with Prince Edward Island, and they are calling their environment a learning hub, particularly because for recovery in Prince Edward Island, it's very much associated with addictions and not with mental health. And so in their small community, they wanted to move away from the term recovery because it doesn't quite have the same meaning. The term recovery is very interesting. I mean, I think we use it so much here at our CMHA that our community uses that term as well. But there is this piece where that term doesn't always necessarily fit or feel right to a lot of individuals in our community. They don't necessarily see themselves, you know, through that kind of language, or they might even find the term recovery too clinical, as opposed to healing or well-being or their own just journey.
I'm just aware of the time. I want to get through. It's 12:25. Simon had also asked about a list of courses, and I believe that they're there on your CMHA website, right? The list of courses.
They are, but I could also send you, Sandra, a list of our courses along with the description and the length of time for each of the courses. So what you'll see is that we have online courses and we have in-person courses, and we have some streams of courses. And so sometimes they overlap because we have an online version of the same in-person classroom course, and sometimes they aren't consistently in both venues.
Okay, thank you. Louise Christie had asked a question, but I also see that she had to run. But her question was really around what helps professionals to get involved on an equal basis, and how do you address the capacity building needs of those with lived experience or learned experience?
Okay, so the first part, how do we get professionals to buy into the equality in the room?
Yes.
So I love that question, because that is always something that we feel a little bit nervous about. But we also do the same knowledge sharing with them when they're invited to co-production about what to expect in the environment. And we emphasize the equity. But I think what happens is when we do our check-in, we are careful not to, you know, we kind of guide that. We say, just tell us your name and tell us what your vision is of an addictions course or something like that. And so what we do is we try not to just wear our titles or even sort of put on an identity in that room. We do it in the classroom as well, because our courses are open to anyone. And so our courses might involve people who are service providers, might be family members, might be parents, might be people who are just looking to, you know, deal with their own well-being situation or their own personal problems. And so what we found is that we just don't make a conscious effort of kind of encouraging people to share those kind of identifiers, but just kind of really get to who they are. And so people, like, they seem to let that armor go very quickly. The students, though, also are so my goodness, I can't emphasize this enough. They're just so insightful, and they bring so much to co-production, and their knowledge is so phenomenal. And when, it's not lip service to say that they're experts. They are experts, and they demonstrate that in the co-production session. And I think they blow the professionals away. And sometimes, you know, I mean, we try to definitely be as respectful as possible, but these students will, you know, kind of, if the professional says something that they're maybe not super comfortable with, or that sounds too wordy, they might just jump in and say, can you explain that further for us? Or can you make that sound, like, can you say that in different words? Or they'll throw in their perspective. And so there'll always be this, the exchange of ideas, and that openness that everybody is safe to talk. We have often thought about how do we create that safe experience, and we haven't figured out, you know, what that is. But what we know is that we do create that safe place where everybody can just be their authentic selves.
I can see lots of people kind of cheering and kind of resonating with you. So that's really wonderful. It's 12:29. I know we have sort of 3 more questions left, but I want to say if people need to go, I don't know if you can stay on and answer these kind of remaining questions, or, but I know people may have other things that they're going to. And I posted an eval in the chat as well. So are you okay, Sheryl, to stay for a few more minutes?
Happy to, absolutely.
A few more questions. So I know, Jillian, you had a question around the model, CMHA Winnipeg, and how it's different.
Is it, if there's time, I feel greedy asking 2 questions, but I'm just
I don't know, Jillian.
I know that you've changed the name, right? But are there any other adaptations to the model for Manitoba from the original vision in the UK recovery model, recovery college model? And if so, what motivated those changes?
Yeah, there are a few. I mean, we don't think of ourselves as a replica of the UK model, but we do consider ourselves like we follow fidelity. And so that's very important to us. And we do have a good relationship with the folks in the United Kingdom, and that's very valuable. But at the same time, we try to be very focused on our own community. And we also want to think about our evolution and what that looks like. And so that's where we're kind of at this point. So a couple differences is that in the UK model, many of the recovery colleges are attached to a hospital or a mental health sort of residential kind of long-term program. And so the students are actually outpatients or inpatients. And so that's where we are very different. Our hopes and dreams are to actually expand our learning center and create a peer school where we train people to become peer supporters. And so that would be kind of an initiative of our own. As well, we really do, we do a lot of work with colleges and secondary, post-secondary, as well as high schools in Manitoba, and we dream about being on campus because we think that it would be wonderful to have a learning center to support the needs of students in post-secondary and recognizing what their experiences are and their well-being needs. And I can remember when I was a student eons ago, and it was such a challenge. And then in addition, where I see a lot of things are to be different and off script is in the courses that we create. And so we follow what our students tell us. And so typically in a lot of recovery colleges, the emphasis is on well-being and not on mental health. And so it's not common in recovery college to have courses about borderline personality disorder, anxiety, depression, bipolar. However, our students for our province felt that, you know, diagnosis awareness is not something that they get very much in the mental health system. And they have the foundation of many of our courses are courses on anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, psychosis, and the gamut. And then where we start to build, and I know that uniqueness happens, is on what the courses that students ask for. So, you know, we have a course on codependency. We have the grief and loss that we're working on. We've just completed a course on radical acceptance, a course on forgiveness. We're about to do one on, we have courses on stigma, self-stigma, discrimination, your rights. And so I think that's really where we start to pioneer, because we're talking about topics that only our students are identifying, and that is going to move us away from being as similar to other recovery colleges.
Anybody else want to sign up for some courses? I'm thinking there's a few that might be relevant to me.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
a little plug that we've been talking about maybe bringing a recovery college model to McMaster as well. So just stay tuned. If people
so
are interested in
exciting,
having that conversation, would be neat. So this is timely for that. I just have a few more questions to get through. I just want to make sure I get to everyone's questions. Trish, I believe, I don't know if you're still here. You had a question around professionals and students. Yes, there she
Hi
is.
guys. Hi. Hi Sheryl. Very interesting. Just a quick observations that the recovery colleges here in Ireland are the same as yourselves. We're not connected to the Department of Psychiatry or anything like that. They're standalone. And surely the whole idea around recovery colleges is through co-production, the students tell you what they want in terms of courses and stuff. So each one would have a unique identity depending on the students that are in it at any one time.
Wonderful.
Well, my question goes to you. You said earlier that you invite professionals and students to participate. How do you go about inviting them? Because surely if you invite them, then you might miss out on people who would be really good, but don't have the opportunity to engage.
Yes, and that's well. And so first off, Winnipeg is a pretty small community. I mean, we are 800,000 people, but you know, we are one of those places where everybody knows somebody who knows somebody. And so in terms of the professionals, I mean, that's been also part of our journey, and an area that we want to get better at. Sometimes it's people that we know, but it's also sometimes just, you know, sort of spreading that word, and you know, somebody knows somebody who might be interested, and that sort of thing. The other thing is just really going on Google and saying who in Winnipeg, you know, works on this, or who knows this, and then just doing cold calls. And then the thing that we're doing right now, though, is actually trying to create a registry for ourselves around co-production. So rather than kind of starting every session from fresh and like, where are we going to find people? We do have collected people who have said to us, we like to be involved with co-production. And so whenever, you know, we see something, we'll invite them, and it's kind of first come, first serve. The first few people who sign up, you know, are the ones that come, and sometimes people are busy and they can't, and we'll say next time. And so we try and open that invitation as wide as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad I asked you to unmute, Trish. I'd just love to hear that Irish accent. So lovely. Jen, you had a question, I think, about decision making around programming.
Hi, Sheryl.
Hi.
I just I wanted to ask, in terms of the decision to develop the recovery college model in Winnipeg, existing educational programming students or potential recovery college students involved in that decision to go with the recovery college and co-production model?
Sorry, Jen, you cut out for me a little bit. Could you just repeat the question?
I can say it. I think it's in the chat here. It says,
oh, great.
Were potential existing educational programming students and community members involved in the decision to develop a recovery college?
Yeah, and so, I mean, the development is the really fascinating thing, because it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. How do you co-produce when you don't have a community to co-produce with? And how do you create community if you don't co-produce? And so we actually relied on some already communities that existed within our CMHA. So we had a group of individuals who are peer supporters to one another. They had taken our workshops in the past, and then they created on their own support group, and designed that support group based on their needs and on an educational focus. So we actually asked them if they would be our initial co-production group, and they were the ones who kind of led us through our initial course development, and helped us create our first 5 courses from a co-production perspective, and invited them to bring on to that co-production group anybody that they knew that might be helpful and might want to be involved. And then very quickly we saw, as we started to pilot courses, people who were ready to jump in and join us. And so the co-production process has been a journey, and it hasn't always been easy, trying to find people and figure it out, and trying to sell people and help them understand. And 3 years into it, I have to say, like, I still kind of feel we're just getting it, like, and we feel really happy with where we're at. But I know in a year from now, I'm probably going to say, like, wow, have we ever made strides in this last year? So I don't even know what adventures and what knowledge we'll gain, but it really is an evolution. And I never think of us as even halfway through this journey, because there's so much more for us to learn and so many ways that we can do better.
That's an important message, right? Around the time that it takes to do this and understand this and change how we do things. Lynn, you had a question, I think. I'm not sure if it's a quick one.
I don't know if it's a quick one either. It was about impact.
Because we can also take this offline, right? I know people are tired. Cheryl's probably exhausted from doing this for an hour, but.
Although it might be a quick, maybe we could get a quick yes or no.
Okay.
It's about whether there was an overall objective. So beyond setting up the Recovery College, was there a thing that was going to achieve? We've worked with groups that talk about it's about improving well-being and measuring that, or it's about recovery, or it's about just there being activities for people to be part of. Was that established?
Yeah, such a great question, Lynn, because when I think about it, I mean, we created a logic model, and I keep meaning to go back and update our logic model because it was really conservative, and the outcomes we were looking at is around recovery, but also about just knowledge transfer and strategies and things like that. The thing that surprised me the most, and I feel so naive and to say it, but was how much community grew and how intrinsic to the Learning Center community is, and how co-production is actually that spark that creates that community and that feeling of belonging, and that's so often what people say to us. So yeah, I mean, essentially we were just looking to create, an educational delivery system and have impact around people's well-being and ability to self-guide their own recovery. But what we ended up, in terms of outcomes is tenfold, if not thousandfold. And so it's been really exciting. And as a person who's very social, I'm surprised that I did not anticipate the community that would be built. But again, like, that's the piece where, the old brain of it's my job to go to the computer and decide what people need and want and put it out there, offer it, and then go back and do something else, rather than actually ask people, like, how was this? What did you like? What didn't you like? And create that environment of community.
Thank you. And Brent, of course, has asked a question that should be a whole session in itself. And I feel like there should be a session that we should go forward around pitfalls, things to avoid, learning from some mistakes. I wonder if you could pick one, like a mistake or a pitfall that you wish you had known that you want to tell us.
Oh, such a great question, and so many to choose from. A pitfall. Well, I think that, when I think about the journey, and I still see the journey in my colleagues around co-production, is letting go of the idea that you are the expert because you are the one who has the education and the professional experience. And so I think that's actually a pitfall that I fall into every time. I think, we might do a course on a really complicated topic. Right now, I'm working with a group around creating a virtual course on addictions. And, I always, the pitfall I fall into is, where am I going to find people with lived experience who are going to be able to, design a course around this and contribute I have right now like 15 experts, but I'm trying to find those lived experience folks. And I think the pitfall that I fall under, and I'm going to humble myself and say, is I too often underestimate, the commitment and the compassion and the willingness of the people who are, have lived experience and come into our co-production sessions as the people with lived experience, and how much they offer.
On that note, I think I'm going to cut off the discussion, but just a huge thank you, Sheryl. Lots of really helpful insights, great questions to everyone that posted them. Probably could go on longer and longer, but just anyway, thank you for your passion, for your commitment, the work that you're doing. We're really excited to see you at 3 years in this journey. So I think you have lots to say about the beginning of the process and the journey that it's been. So a huge thank you to you. I have posted an evaluation in the chat if people could fill that out, and just upcoming. So in March, we're going to do our co-design hub is actually going to host the speaker series, and we're going to have a bit of a dialogue about what have we learned so far, a little bit about our theory of change. So watch for that. In April, we have someone talking about co-design and technology as well. So lots of things coming up. If you're not on our mailing list, let us know and we will add you to that, and we'll take it from there. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and have a great day from wherever you're calling in from.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful spending this time with you guys.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Everyone. Just Emma, did you see someone added about being added to the distribution list? You see that from Lynn?
I did not, but I just saved the chat, so we can
Okay,
go
perfect.
over. And I think it's available to on your recording, but I just wanted to make sure we had everything for the chat. So
Perfect.
yes,
Thanks.
I will make sure that that is added.
Hey, Jillian.
Sandra.
Hi, just thought I'd stick around in case you wanted to debrief at all.
Sam.
Hi, Sam.
Hi.
Sam.
I'm
And
looking a little
Vivian
rough
from
today.
the United Way is here. Hey, she's Vivian. Hey, do you hear us? Maybe she's offline.
She could be. Hi, Vivian.
So that was great. Great
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah, I think she really brought it to life for people, as it is a term it's hard to get your head around, and I think she did a nice job on that.
Really
And
nice job.
we got to ask a couple of questions. Maybe we should stop the recording.